Back when
I
there's
don't know what
cheap.
else we sold.
We wrote the EDGI. Marty had us to write the EDGI.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so it did a lot of things. But one of my best memories, I think, was you setting that, helping us set that goal for us to go on that class trip. Is an everlasting memory in my personal mind. And so I'm going to ask just some of the others if they would join in. And Judy, if I could start with you, if you'd like to say something.
Well, we were talking about Colorado or other places. He used to let us. I drove Paul's car. I nearly wrecked that sucker. My whole life flashed over. And I think Patricia was with me that day, and I was passing the car in front of Vivian Matus's house on the straight, and it just started going this way. And it was all running through my mind, oh my God, Paul is going to kill me, and my mother's going to kill me. It was terrible. And also, the other significant memory I have is I was chosen salutatorian. Had no idea how to make a speech. So I went in homeroom one day, and it was just me and Paul, and he dictated the entire speech, just off the top of his head. And I've still got the little notebook over there that I wrote it down, and I used that for my notes. So that's my two memories.
Else out there has got a memory of Paul Scarborough.
I remember when he patted the whole room.
Yes, that big paddle.
Redbeard said that I'm gonna be last, and he'd be taller than them. And I mean, he left his red foot off the floor.
I remember in psychology when we were trying to figure out whether a cat killed because it was hungry or because it just liked to kill. So they had a mouse in the trap, and they had me to go get my cat at home and put it in the cage with the mouse, and it just killed it. So they just killed it.
Just kill. That's a good experience.
Charlotte, you'll have to tell that to Paul louder. About the cat, whether a cat kills for the fun of killing or whether it kills to eat. Remember when you had me go get my cat, put it in a cage? That was Were you blonde?
If I may butt in, Mickey said that Paul whipped the whole homeroom. Frankie Cook said, most of you know Frank, and so young Frankie, he said, well, when we went in the office out there, that's actually where the school is now, said when Scarborough locked his brakes, said we
I remember Jerry and Clarence and boys always having a great call up the steps. And looking at that, and I'd always be there, I would be there.
I've never been able to teach at Jerry. Those steps, But I don't need a microphone.
I know you don't have.
Just let me say a few things. What was the first thing we did in homeroom every morning? Had roll call. So I want to call the roll using your real name. And I'm just calling from this list that I've been getting there, so it's incorrect by some. And so you either answer here or present. Virginia C. Peggy Brown.
Here.
Joyce Hamby.
Here.
Betty Pickett.
Here.
Rosalie Solomon.
Here.
Sherry Bowman. Carol Pemberton. Ruby Beach.
Here.
Shirley Kilby.
Here.
Geraldine Worthy.
Here.
Tricia Morris.
Here.
Margaret Newell.
Here.
Judy Holly.
Here.
Ann Chambers.
Here.
Charlotte Friends.
Here.
Kathy Hedrick. Katie Brown. Karen Summers. Linda Bingham.
Here.
Ruth Presley.
Here.
Vivian Webb.
Here.
Ronnie Graves. Here. Terry McCoy. Here. Jerry Reynolds. Here. Otis Hill. Here. Kenneth Beard. Earl Hedrick. Here. Donald Miller. Here. Ralph Stewart. Here. Sandra Nelson. Robert Bingham. Here. Steve Kitchell. Gary Powell. Here. Troy Field. Sidney Clark. Here. Lester Lawson. Here. Benton Smith. Here. Wanda Snow.
Here.
Did I miss anybody? Just some little thoughts, that, I noticed on the graduation program, introduction speaker, Robert Davidson. I remember when Mr. Davidson first came to Oakdale as principal. We had a assembly, in that old auditorium. And he spoke and he said, now you can call me, I want you to call me Mr. Davidson here at school. But on the street, you can call me Bob. So Gary called him Bob on the street. But I noticed on the graduation program, Wade Boswell was the speaker. Wade Boswell was a graduate of Oakdale High School, and they lived where the old tennis court, where the tennis courts is now. And he was a psychiatrist in Knoxville. And I remember he was a speaker for the Gideons. And this had nothing to do with our class, your class, but he came to Piney Church one time as a Gideon speaker. And I was always impressed with what he had to say about why he became a Gideon and why he became a Christian. And he said he just sat on the steps of their house there next to the First Baptist Church and just listened. His father never did take him to church. And he just listened to the services at church. But he said then he was a doctor in the Navy. And their ship was stationed just off the coast of Vietnam, a hospital ship. And he said this one young Marine sergeant had brought his platoon. And everybody in the platoon had been wounded except the sergeant. And so he said, he just asked him one day, he said, how'd you get through all this? He said he just pulled out a little New Testament out of his pocket and said, I read this every day. And he said, that's what caused me to become a Christian. I just thought that was just an interesting story that we didn't know that at the time, that he was a speaker at your graduation. And I appreciate Shirley mentioned the committee. This is the best put on, and I've been to a lot of reunions. This is the best organized and best, and this military display over here is second to none. And I just thank them for doing such a good job. And some of these folks and them that have passed on, I just want to tell one little funny thing about Don Russell. Remember there used to be a little snow cone drive-in like or something right across from Harriman High School. And I think it's called Snow Cone.
Snow King.
Snow King. Anyhow, I was parked there one day, and in classes, whether it's geography or history or whatever, I'd sometimes require you to make an oral speech. And so Don, he just had a whole lot of trouble. You could actually hear his knees knocking. But I told him, I said, you can't pass this class unless you make this speech. So he made the speech. So several years later, I sat over to Snow King one day, and Don came up and he said, you remember how he always preface everything with son. I said, son, I just want to tell you. He said he worked for AT&T at that time. And they'd sent him to Colorado to train a group of men on how to splice a cable that had 600 wires in it, see? And he said, son, I just want to tell you, he said, I never would have been able to teach that class if you hadn't made me make that speech. Of course, and some of you have talked about some of the things that you've done since 1966, but the best thing that ever happened to me is sitting right here beside me. And you know, some of you wonder how come you began teaching in Oakdale. And there's a real story behind that. You know, I had to go to the University of Tampa after I was injured in '58. It was the only university in the South, the only college in the South that had handicap facilities. And so that's why I went to the University of Tampa. And while I was there, you know, I played wheelchair basketball with the Florida Wheels was a team. You know, you remember I had them to come one time and do a show at the school. We charged admission, make money to go over class. But anyhow, when I got ready to do my student teaching at the University of Tampa, my advising professor called me in and he said, well, I don't know what we're going to do. He said, Florida's got a law on the books that the handicapped are not allowed to teach. He said, you reckon they'd ever let you do it up at Oakdale? I said, I don't know, I'll find out. Dr. Ross Wilson was in the schools that time, and so I called my dad, and he called Dr. Wilson, and he said, sure. Well, God just works in such mysterious ways. Doug Freitag was teaching what I started teaching, and he got drafted.
Yeah.
And so Dr. Wilson I was the only paid intern teacher that ever went there. And so he just hired me. And I'd go back to Tampa during the summer months, and then Tampa did away with their handicap facilities, and I had to transfer to Tennessee Tech, and guys would pull me up the steps, you know, see. But, I just tell all that. But when I first began teaching, I was 62, you all were, of course, a freshman class, and I was your sponsor. And I remember, you know, we put up like a thermometer up in front of the room, and as we'd raise money, you know, selling donuts and this, that, and other, I would raise that thermometer up, and it took us 4 years. I remember what it topped out at, what, 5,000? Anyhow, thinking back on those things, and we had a mother's club that we deposited our money in. Kay Langley, you know, was our treasurer, and she did such a good job. See. Today, that would not be allowed. You couldn't have a mother's club, and you'd have to watch your money in the school general account. Got by with a lot of crooked stuff.
Amen.
Can you imagine, we had about 30 people, and we took to Daytona Beach, and somebody did some real good organizing, you know, that we could do that. One little thing I happened, and I don't, Benton may not remember this, but just as soon as we got off the bus at that motel, well, there was like a seawall, and you could walk out to the top of that seawall, and people were sunbathing out there on the sand, you know. And this one girl was sunbathing with her strap unstrapped in the back, and she stood up and shook it out and then said, "My God." But in homeroom,